Greetings, I am Liz.
And I am Scandal.
And let's play a game together.
Yes.
Alrighty, so we are going to find out about these fish because we are super curious.
Alright, got it. Just do it first.
Oh, we get a reward. Sorry, half the day, or part of the day. The next third of the day has gone by.
We've done it.
One of these days,
The accomplishment.
I should just, use every single power-up at once or something. I don't know.
Oh my god, please
I don't think you're allowed to use more than one at a time of each variety, but it'd be really funny to just replace every single tile in the game with a power-up. That would be hilarious.
Honestly, it'd be pretty good. Alright, place fish. Because
Why did you leave a junk pile there? Let's clear the junk, and then clear more of the junk. You could have just said step 1 of 2.
Yeah, you really got a lot done.
I did?
Yeah.
Didn't we get a lot done? Well, there's still a bit left. Have to get some fish in the water here. Why?
Why?
Why would you ever think that that water is for fish?
No, I mean, with the estate.
It's true. Actually, this would be a feat to transform this kind of land that quickly in real life and replace and repair and rebuild all the things and get live functioning growth of all the varieties. This would be an art project to essentially do that, to watch that level of just
organization
of redoing an entire greenhouse and everything like that, and just doing this day by day. This would be phenomenal. This would be essentially a performance art piece where you planned it, you had everything already in order, and you had everyone practice their stuff, and then you just went in and you mowed it. But moving earth, building terraces, laying sidewalk and brickwork, removing, large structures, repairing entire buildings, it would be an amazing thing, especially if you had to do it section by section, 1 day each.
Yep.
You cannot work on all of it and have it all done in 30 days with a big crew. This is phenomenal. He is correct.
Yes, absolutely. It's honestly a miracle that you got all this work done in a month.
And without any money and ever purchasing anything. Really,
and also, again, there's that level of, what I think is really sad, truly, is this thing of going, imagine she does all this work and she fails.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much that sucks? And she really will. So, we do not know what's going to happen to Lily if she fails.
No.
The game doesn't approach it, but I'm just imagine if she does fail. What's going to happen to her?
Yeah, she doesn't
What happened
know
to her life? What happened to...
Again, as far as we can tell, she hasn't texted, called, emailed, talked to anyone from her previous life. She, as far as we know, does not have any other close friends or any other family. Her mom is estranged. As far as we know, she could maybe try and hunt down her, what might be stepdad, and ask if she could stay with him, or it'd be finding potentially a live-in job somewhere, or going, hey, Regina, I lost. Can I stay with you for a couple of weeks?
Right.
Depending on what if Regina and her husband share a tiny little 1-bedroom apartment.
Right.
You never know how people live, and it doesn't really matter. Even if their business is good, they can live very different ways.
I think that's the other reason also, though, that I'm kind of boggled by, Lily doing this. Not only, it is impressive, but it's also, part of my brain, because I'm also just, that's kind of the thing that I think a lot of us face in a lot of ways is going, if you don't succeed, especially with capitalism and the way that it's run right now,
yes,
it really is she seems to have no connections, no really strong support at all. The level of terror and disempowerment, is really strong.
So a lot of the expectation that I've heard from people is if you have a problem, you go to your friends. So what I have asked recently of one of my relatives, she was talking about the fires that are all over America right now, and how people were having to evacuate and how many people had to evacuate, hundreds of thousands and things like that. And I was like, so when you evacuate, where do you go? And she's like, oh, well, you have to get out of the fire zone. I was like, okay, yeah, but when you evacuate, where do you go? And she's like, well, you go to friends, relatives, you go to your, other house, you go to a hotel. And I'm like, okay, but if you don't have anywhere to stay or you don't have money to do those things, where do you go? She's like, well, you can't stay there. I'm like, no, but they're telling people they have to evacuate. Fire is literally shooting across the street. I appreciate that. So where do you go? Well, just go to, there's probably some evacuation centers. You go to those. I'm like, I've never heard of an evacuation center, but it sounds like there might, I know people do that in churches sometimes. They just hang out there while crises are happening. I don't know if that's the same as an evacuation center, but the thing is some people really do. Even if their life is super freaking stable in one moment, if something shifts, some people have nowhere to go. Even if they own a house, their mortgage is paid off, they live alone, they're independent, they're a single car family, even if whether they're still working or they're retired, if they have their money set up in such a way that a hotel doesn't fit in with their budget, or that it doesn't fit in with a week, a month, whatever, if they have to evacuate, if they don't have friends, where do they go?
And that's something that I think has been also really interesting, even just with the coronavirus pandemic in the United States as it stands. There's a lot of people where they're talking about it going like, they couldn't go to work. They like so many millions, guys, like just ridiculously high numbers of people lost their jobs. And it was one of those things of going, they're going to get thrown out of their houses because they can't pay their mortgages. And people are literally going, what do we do? Well, we have to go back to work, but we can't go back to work because then we're going to be contributing to the spread of the virus. But literally then you have your government going, well, you have to. And it's like, but we can't. You tell us to stay home, but don't stay home because you need to work to save our economy, but of course not you, because, you know, why would you I just, like, it bugs me because I'm like, we don't have the kind of support in this society that I really think that we should. And it's really frustrating to kind of watch something, even for a character going like, to me, the
This
real
feels
horror
scary.
here, I'm like, this is
game
uncomfortable.
Feels scary, and especially in the sense of, like, a lot of people try and take advantage of each other in reference to scams of, you know, you have inherited $500,000 or $10 million. Somebody overseas has inherited you. And I appreciate this is a real actual aunt, but again, she doesn't know what the terms of the will are, and as far as we know, she actually hasn't ever read it at all. He just told her she inherited. She read the letter that was with it. Like in the very beginning, when we started the cutscene of the game, there was a will and there was a letter. And as far as we knew, she just read the letter and came out here.
I feel like maybe this whole thing should be the existential horror of Lily's Garden.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Like, God, because,
All right.
I mean, if you really look at it, it really could just be that horrifying.
In 1 month.
A lot of work done in 1 month.
It's also been a whole month with no days off. Hard to stay focused sometimes. I'm so tired.
I mean,
I feel you. On the other hand, I have also been that person who's worked a couple of jobs. You have your weekday job and your weekend job, and then you also have school sometimes.
And you know what I have to say? I have never been that person.
I
Which I think is radical and hilarious, because apparently, like, between my friend and I found it to be wild, where they're like, yeah, I had to work multiple jobs, and I'm just like, I have never worked multiple jobs, and then also been like, and then I went to school full-time at the same time, and I was like, that was not me.
So
and somehow I managed to still be okay, and I still had money in savings. Now, I never had
However,
a ton in savings.
my
but...
friend had student loans, and I did not. Part of my paranoia was I didn't want any debt, because I hadn't been financially educated as a kid, and so my experience was you need to make more than you spend. Like, the only advice my dad gave me about finances was you make more than you spend. So if I was spending on college classes, I had to be making more than the cost of those classes, based on the only advice I'd gotten. So I went, I have to be able to buy these outright every semester or I can't go.
All right. Well, here's something else I'm actually going to say. So based off of my exposure to basically culture in regards to the United States, this might sound weird, but please think about going to community college actually before going to like a big college campus. Now I know, so I think you went to community college,
I did.
right?
It was cheaper.
Oh yeah, it's
Much cheaper.
But that's what I'm saying is that if you're in the United States and you're considering going to college at all, or if you are in college, and I understand why people are like, oh, the college classes are much better on a university campus. Consider going to a community college. They are a hell of a lot cheaper. And again, they are meant to be there to help you in regards to community. I just like, it was interesting actually, somebody breaking down going, a lot of community college is, while they're not always going to be perfect and you're going to get hit or misses, you're still going to get hit or misses with big university classes.
Okay, so
the same thing
in Colorado,
happens.
it's actually been touted that their community colleges are really, really good. The ones that I am familiar with, that I've heard, you know, friends or family or whatever go to, there's actually been levels of like getting on the news and going, this is a really good community college. And it even competes with the universities. But like, community colleges are really much more financially affordable, and it doesn't mean, unless you're looking for a like big accredited college to get, you know, basically a label on your degree to go to somewhere specific.
Right.
Like you're either, you know, that you're going to be turning in, I graduated from Harvard, not I graduated, you know?
Right.
Then you don't need to worry about it as much, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
No question, you earned that inheritance, though. Just a few days left and you can relax.
I know. I can let it all go to shit again, just like Aunt Mary did. I never have to touch it again once it's mine. It'll be amazing. And I mean, the deity that I work with, that I've also inherited, will just maintain all of it.
Patron,
My patron will. I'll just, you know, we'll share mojitos together, and they'll just take care of it all.
Patron going, oh my god, you completely forgot that I was here! You've been just talking to the boy and your mom! Ah!
True.
Speaking of, why don't you sit down for a minute and I'll grab some fish from one of the other ponds? What? Excuse me?
You're gonna take some from the Zen garden, or you're gonna take the goldfish from the little area where you built a gazebo?
That doesn't...
There's not enough in the Zen garden. And when you say one of the other ponds, do you mean like the lake with the island in it? And those would be wild fish, I guess?
That's
Some of those should theoretically be able to swim down here if that underwater place is connected to any of the flowing water, because there's a river running through our literal property.
I'm also going though, I'm like, you have different types of fish for different types of areas. You can't just be transplanting fish wildly and expecting them to be fine.
Right?
What is...
Additionally, like, I've thought the koi pond was very small all along. Like, I know some people keep koi fish in small ponds, but for the size of fish, like, again, it looks shallow. So if you get cold in the winter, they like to go a little bit deeper.
Right.
But I mean, obviously we're in somewhere in California where it doesn't freeze. So that's okay. But like,
assuming global warming doesn't hit it.
Again, the water looks very shallow. That sounds like a weird thing to say. Good idea. That'll save me another trip to the pet store where I literally just hypnotize them and steal their goods.
Perfect. Back soon.
How are you going to bring them over here? Which fish are you going to grab? I'm so confused. That is not the height of that rock. She just went up the embankment and put her butt at the top of the embankment.
Some fish grabbing later.
Okay, but I need you guys to understand he stole them from the koi
koi.
garden. He took them from the koi garden.
All right, little guys, in you go.
That she really did. The embankment's as high as her head, and she jumped to put her butt at the height of her head and just propped on that rock.
Everybody here is a badass secretly, and you just don't know it.
Good job. You have a quirk.
I was about to say, everybody in this world has quirks.
It's fine. 3 fish. I feel like they will be sad with only 3.
I do too.
Thanks for doing that for me. I love the idea that he just basically took these flappy, grubby fish and tucked them in his arms and just brought them over like a bouquet and ran and then just dumped them into the water.
Please don't do that, guys, to fish. Actually, shock. Like, fish are super sensitive to basically shock. So, like, being jumbled around.
When I say I love the idea, I mean I'm deeply offended by the idea.
No.
So
I love the mental image in a cartoony sense.
Yes.
But I'm like, for a real life scenario, do not do that with fish. Like, most of them primarily will just fucking flat out die. Yes. Like, fish are extremely sensitive to stressors and changes in their environment in that way sometimes, and like, wow.
Also, many animals are sensitive to shock.
Yes.
Especially shock and change in environment. So, I actually have a mouse story. I have told my friend before. I was going to say, so there is animal death in this story. I apologize. They died of a heart attack. Okay?
Yeah.
So what happened was my mom was trying to pull a blanket off the couch one time. One of those like cozy blankets you'd put on the end of a bed, but it was on the top of a couch. So she pulls it off in one of those grand gestures, and this thing comes flying through the air. And you know, my mom, having good reflexes, having played softball, she just catches it. And it turns out that it's a live mouse. And so it bites her. And so she freaks out and holds on to it and doesn't let go in the way you're supposed to, you know, have the snake that bit you kind of thing.
Right.
And no, we lived in a part of the like rural area where, you know, you would get mice sometimes, and also you had fields and stuff like that. So we had live traps in our house, and we had little cages sometimes where we collect a couple of mice at a time and then go release them far away. You know, so she puts it in one of our cages, and the poor thing wobbles around a little bit. And then immediately, like, just sort of rolls over and dies. And she's like, "Oh God, I killed it!" And and so she takes it to the vet, going, "Is it okay? I don't know what to do." And also going, "Does it have rabies? Am I okay?" And the vet's like, "You caught a mouse with your bare hand. So let me take a look at it." She's like, "As far as everything we can tell, it died of a heart attack." And then they did like, you know, tests. They're like, "It does not have rabies. It's fine," because they did the blood work on the mouse, and then that came back later as not having rabies and stuff like that. But they're like, "When a mouse shows up, you do not pick it up." And she's like, "It was an accident." They're like, brought in everyone in the entire vet's clinic to be like, "Here's what you do. You need to get up on a chair and squeal." And they demonstrated it for her and stuff like that. But like, there's like she didn't damage the mouse at all. Yeah. It's basically if you just, you know, got flung out of your bed into the air and a giant hand caught you, you know, sometimes you have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Anyway, fish are sensitive to heart attacks and to basically stressors that will just cause them to keel over, even if they don't die of suffocation.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for doing that for me. A few minutes to relax does me wonders. I just jumped really high and put my booty down.
Hey, no problem. Let me guess, though. You gotta decorate for these fish now, yeah?
I mean, they're gonna need something to look at, right?
Honestly,
Also, I'm just like, she should have made a comment about no bench. It would have been an
Eh.
ultimately perfect time. Or you know what
yes.
she could have done? She could have gone and sat on the bridge and dangled her feet.
Oh,
It would
it would
have
have
been
been
super
cute.
cute. It
Honestly,
also would have been very her, because she's very cute.
yes,
Mm.
it's true. That would be very much her. There's also the thing of yes, like believe it or not, fish get bored, especially in an
Yes.
enclosed area. So
Or
yeah.
tiny little containers. They like stimulus too.
Yes.
You really do know me so well.
Occupational hazard.
Of being your neighbor.
Yeah,
All
pretty
right,
much.
so tires?
Here we go. Or
I think clear junk.
I dare you to decorate the pond first.
All right, let's
Because
leave the
this
junk
way,
pile.
leave the junk pile. I want to see how far this goes and like if it will
Oh
cut
my
into
God.
things.
Challenge accepted.
Oh my
We
God.
just put those there. Why would we change them? Okay, it's just lighting them up again. Fascinating. On top of his feet. I love that
Hey,
choice.
Wild.
On
of
his
his-
butt.
Hey, they got vines though.
All up in his booty. So, no, I like the vines. I'm going with the vines.
I think though that's a little bit too much water demand for the vines, but that's okay. It's fine.
It probably is.
The fish are gone.
We just destroyed the fish.
Yep, fish are dead. Goodbye,
Sorry.
fish.
Bye, fish. Here you go, fishy friends. Fish, we live in the tires now. Bye.
Goodbye.
Well,
Well, if that doesn't lift their weird scaly spirits, nothing will.
do fish have weird scaly spirits?
Uh,
Have you ever felt like a fish?
I mean, when I drink.
Ah.
Wait. I mean, how do you mean? Salty, slimy, lippy,
Have you ever been
Fish
around
bladdery?
fish? Ever float bladder?
float bladder,
Float bladdery.
float bladder,
So
float
the
bladder.
float bladder is what allows them to decide how high or low they are in the water. I also love that Lily's hovering. That's very charming.
It is pretty funny,
Like
actually.
he looks like he's probably floating too, but he's a little more believable than she is.
Yeah.
I really hope you're never slimy, but no, I just mean, like, before I moved here, I felt like I was in a fishbowl. Could only go so far, stuck with whoever was in there with me. Yes, actually, that is accurate to the entire game that we have understood so far. So thank you for communicating that one thing in a way that we totally understand. You were isolated as hell with Blaine, and for some reason, you also had no work friends.
At all, which is
None.
wild. And I'm not saying that
People
you
don't
can't
have
go
to.
through that experience, and and I'm not saying you need to go out with those people at all, because I really never went out with people that I worked with.
No,
But I'm just like,
if you're that lonely, sometimes you look for any connection you can make.
yeah,
But if I get this inheritance, I'll have a whole ocean to swim around in. I'll have so much freedom of movement. Oh my God.
and it will at least save me. But everybody else can kind of go fuck themselves, right?
I mean, it is okay. I'm just gonna say, in my opinion, it is okay to take care of yourself.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, like, so the thing that I find to be very frustrating is, again, this individualistic thing where people go, but the only thing I can do is take care of myself. And I'm like, imagine if everybody who went, but I will take care of me, had more of a community attitude, and then we all went, we can all take care of each other.
Or take care of a little bit more. Or
Yeah.
if you have a big overarching reigning body that tries to, provide for everybody with, roads and, natural parks and, things like that, hospitals, you could just, provide for all of their needs.
Right?
At least not the wants, just the needs.
Yeah, an ocean of money. You'll be a regular Scrooge McDuck.
You think I should drain this and fill it with money to roll in? It's more than that. I guess I feel like I have 10,000 forks in the road ahead of me. And I don't know which one to choose.
Okay, honey, I'm sorry I don't feel sympathetic because at least you have choices. So this is the one thing that also pisses me off sometimes where people go, oh my God, I just have money and it's so much responsibility. I'm like, I appreciate that. You actually get to have those choices though, compared to people who are really just dirt ass fucking poor. I don't have any choice. I have to go work when it's Corona. What else am I gonna do when I'm dealing with the virus?
I mean, you can have the option of go to work or not eat and have nowhere to live, but it's not very much of an option. I don't know which to choose. I appreciate though that for her, this doesn't look as much like, because I don't think she was ever poor. Based on what she's described, I don't think she was ever poor.
And especially
she was in
considering
like
Blaine.
turbulent family experiences.
Yeah.
But I don't think Lily was ever poor.
She sounds like she's been, at least like growing up, definitely solidly middle to middle upper class. And then, of course, with her Aunt Mary, That sounds like, we're into millionaire, like upper class, basically, territory in regards to United States.
Lower upper class.
Lower upper class, yeah.
I say anyway, but based on how we understand the echelons, which I kind of just gone like, there's echelons out there. I am poor. Oh, it's fine.
Right.
Anyway, so it's one of those things where I sympathize with her position, where she's not thinking about charity and she's not thinking about helping other people and she's not thinking about branching out. She's thinking about surviving her ordeal, which she's gone from one ordeal to another.
Oh, yeah.
And as someone who has clearly been demonstrated to be abused, she's thinking about how she might recover and get, and get through that.
Right.
And, rebuild and find herself. And I appreciate that sometimes it can be hard to think about other people when you're just trying to survive.
And I'm not...
No, and I don't think you're being mean
No,
about it. I feel like this is reasonable for the story.
No, and I get that. I just... it's fine.
All
It's
right.
frustrating because it is also one of those things that it's a complex issue. Especially in regards to a game where it can't really decide if we're spending money or not.
Or if it's doing complex issues or just glossing over things.
Yeah. Well, don't think there's ever been a fish that was happy to be on a fork.
I really, what is that analogy even supposed to, what does that even mean, Luke?
Luke, I'm clever.
I'm before a fork. I'm facing a fork. So you're saying forks are bad if I feel like a fish, but I'm not going to feel like a fish anymore. That's the idea.
I don't know. I was just trying to be motivational or something. It sounded wise.
Okay, I loved that scene in Sky High where the main love interest was feeling sad and she was out with one of her friends and they say something, very thoughtful and wise. And she's like, that was amazing. And he's like, yeah. She's like, you're just so, so thoughtful, so smart. And he's like, I read it off the fortune cookie. And it was a really cute moment where War and Peace read the fortune cookie, and it just sounded so natural. It was perfect.
Honestly, I love when characters also do that, and they kind of recognize the meta of the thing of going, really, people usually don't just sound like fortune cookies.
They don't usually just sound poetically wise in that moment. Now, if you love quotes like I do, sometimes you can sound more like a quote because you've exposed yourself to them a lot.
There's also the thing of that sometimes speech and talking literally takes practice, and it's not actually just sometimes. As far as I know, in pretty much all cases, it takes practice. Like, if you can't speak well, my dude, guess what? You need to get more practice if that is a thing you would like to engage with.
I will say, I have practiced a lot.
Oh my God.
And I'm still not there yet, but I'm a very talkative individual, if you hadn't noticed from these things.
Aha!
All right, sounded wise. Oh, and that's it.
All
Cool.
right. Well, cool. Thank you very much, guys, then, for joining us. I guess in the next one, we are going to have
Finally
to
lose our tires.
Oh, I liked our tires.
We'll be
though. They were
untired.
excellente. So, thank you for joining us. If you like what we do, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and also share our videos if you're having a good
Yep.
time with us. Please also feel free to go check out our Ko-Fi and our Patreon. We got some links in the description down below. And I have been Scandal.
And I have been Lies.
And it was great playing with you. Bye!